من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين. We discussed tafsir of Surah Shams, and the verses that we discussed was the 11 oath at the beginning of this surah. And then eventually the main message of this surah was that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, I created the carnal soul and I inspired this soul to differentiate between corruption and piety. One thing is that when we compare the oath of the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the beginning of this surah, we see that they are very magnificent and great creations of God. But we have in other places that Allah uses an oath and swear by small things, like the one we did, Watteen, by the fig and olive. So there is one lesson that we can kind of understand from these kind of qasams is, for Allah there's no difference when it comes to creating the sun or the olive. For humanity it's very different, right? When we look at the sun and its magnificence and its glory, and we compare it with something small like one single olive, that would be very, very difficult to understand the difference, right? So at the same time, it could be very, very helpful to understand that when Allah intends something to exist, it does not require any effort. That's the difference between God and man. The creation does not have a different level of energy consumption for God. The levels are complicated. As I said, the creation could be different in size and complication and complexities, but for Allah is exactly the same. To create the sun or create a single tree. Kun fayakun. Allah wants something to exist, it will exist. And after we come to this ayah, وَنَفْسِ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا, Allah said, I swear by the soul and the one and the power who fashioned the soul, who balanced the soul. Sawaha, we talked about that, taswiyah, right? So there's two qasam in this sentence. I swear by nafs, the soul, wama sawaha, and I swear by the power who created and balanced the soul as well. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا, when inspired, ilham is inspiration. Wahi is revelation. Ilham is inspiration. And for example, in Quran we have that Allah sent ilham to the bee. That this design that the bee is following, and then the pattern that they follow is, Allah said, I inspired Nahl, the bee, to do this. Or when it comes to the mother of Musa alayhi salam, when Fir'aun was looking for a child with different, a specific sign, after somebody said that a child will be born that will destroy your power and your kingdom and all that, he started killing, persecution. And in the process, we have that Musa alayhi salam was saved because his mother threw him in the river. And Allah said, we did that. We sent ilham. We inspired Musa's mother to do that. So inspiration is kind of a gut feeling. That's why I think somebody actually used that word. Is that deep down, this is it. You have to do this. I think that in the contemporary English, they say gut feeling. And Allah said that you know deep down what is corruption and what is good. We know it. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. And I explained that. I'm not going to repeat the detail of the word fujur and taqwa. And then we came to this ayah, which inshallah will be the continuation of today's speech, is when Allah said, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. Qad, as I said, is for ta'keed and emphasis, but at the same time, it's about the past. That's something that already happened in the past. When something is very, very, we know we're 100% sure, what do we say? Let's say if somebody tell you do this, and you did not even do it, you didn't even start, what do you say usually to give assurance to people? Consider it done. We use past tense, right? Consider it done. Think that is done. And when we say قَدْ أَفْلَحَ, is that emphasis to understand that consider when we talk about falah, which means success, that indeed he who purify his soul or her soul will be successful, will achieve success. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ, indeed the success is for the مَنْ زَكَّاهَا, the one who do tazkiyah. So, what do we mean by tazkiyah? This is basically the topic that a lot of scholars in Islam wrote books on this. How to do tazkiyah, self-purification, self-building, wayfaring. There are different words for it. Tazkiyah, if I want to summarize what it means, is very simple. It's not that complicated. Is to protect soul against corruption. That's what the tazkiyah is. When you say purify the soul, is that if there is a possibility that you committed something wrong, you committed something which it will cause deviance and disruption for the path of soul. Zakkaha, fix it right away. And the beauty of the Surah Shams is that when we talk about day and night, heaven and earth, we understand that each of them have their own place, that after night there will be day, and after day will be night. The cycle, the balance is there. For soul is the same concept. Balance has to be maintained. It has to be. From the physical realm, we're learning a metaphysical concept. The physical example is, as I said, the celestial phenomena that we talked about. The spiritual and the metaphysical concept is the nafs, is the soul. So I want you to understand, in Quran there are three types of nafs. So the nafs and the soul we talked about. We have that if we maintain the balance of the soul, we will be fine. We're safe. We're good to go. We will find the right path. We're on the right course toward guidance. But there's a condition, and that condition is the balance. That all these different elements of the soul has to be on the right place. So for example, there are desires, there's shahawat, there's lust, there's anger, all these different things. And the balance is that you have to make sure to satisfy the needs of these desires. When it comes to body, we know because body was created from the earth, we have to eat earthly foods to satisfy the hunger. Right? Because the body is from this earth. To satisfy it, what do you have to do? You have to eat the food, the vegetable, the meat, and all that is at our disposal. But the soul, is the soul from earth? No. وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي, right? Ruh and soul is not an earthly phenomena. It is not. And that's the reason the food of dunya will not satisfy the soul. So we need a spiritual food for the soul as well. What is that spiritual food for the soul? Revelation. Still is something that has been sent to us to take care of a need. We needed something, the soul needed something. Revelation and the message of the prophets, the teaching of the prophets of God, Quran and the scripts is the way to satisfy that hunger, the spiritual one. And there's three types of nafs in Quran. Not that they're different, is that they're different modes of nafs. Depending of how we live, depending on the decision we make, depending on our priorities, we are going to one of these concepts, to one of these modes. The worst mode is nafsa ammaratun bisu. That's one mode. Nafs is nafs, right? Is the carnal soul. The worst mode is that if you do all the fujur, if we commit all the wrong that we can, right? Eventually what happens? We become worst version that we could be. Is a lot of these self-help and motivational speeches talk about be the best version of yourself, right? So when it comes to nafs, there's a worse version of nafs, and that is nafs ammaratun bisu. Is the part of nafs, is the type of nafs that is commanding us to do wrong. Ammara is expecting us, encouraging us, pushing us bisu. Su is wrong, evil, false. So that's the reason we have that some people, they just lie for the sake of lying. They cheat because they can. They do all the wrong because they can. Just pushing toward wrong. That's nafs ammaratun bisu. And if that is the mode, shaitan doesn't need to invest a lot of energy to change our mind, to persuade us to do something wrong. We do it without any hesitation because we're already under that mode. And Quran said the people with shaitan, the relationship with shaitan is not the same. Some people are awliya al-shaitan. They're friends with shaitan. Some people are ikhwan al-shayateen. They're brothers. Their family is like family. Some people are junud al-shaitan, soldiers of shaitan. Some people are shaitan themselves, min al-jinnati wan-nas. That they become a shaitan, a mini shaitan themselves. It's the worse and worse it gets, the worse and worse we become. So that's one mode of nafs, nafs ammara. The second one is nafs al-lawwama. Is the mode of when, lawwama means when you are being blamed. Is the guilty soul. Is that when we do something wrong, this part of this mode of soul is telling us, why did you do it? You did wrong. Blaming us, a self-blaming nafs. And this is, happens with at the beginning stages of doing wrong. The first mistake you make when you are stealing $10, you see that children, you can't get it from their behavior that something is wrong. But when they get 20, and we know people like that I can't believe it that my son or my daughter did this. I can't even believe it. It's out of the blue. I can't even believe it they did this. I trusted them, which is perfectly fine. But the idea is the nafs, it becomes better and better at doing wrong as well as better and better at doing good. Practice pays off. This is what I want you to understand. Practice pays off. Even with wrong. Even with sin. Right? Even with sin. And the nafs al-lawwama usually is active at the beginning stages of doing wrong. When you do the first mistake, the first lie, the first, God forbid, betrayal, then this conscience is coming and telling you, what did you do? They're blaming you for it. And if you embrace this nafs, then you acquire the best mode of nafs, which is nafs mutma'inna. Once you accepted the responsibility, you accept the blame, you ask Allah to forgive you, you start to work for the mistake that you made, then what happened? Mutma'inna. You acquired the mode of tranquility, itminan, assurance. That you're sure. You're at peace with yourself and your soul. وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا is this balance is there. If you go toward nafs ammara is imbalance. If you go toward nafs Mutma'inna, when you talk about tranquility, when you talk about peace, it is about balance. Imbalance cannot, it cannot produce tranquility. How to do it? Tazkiyah, my dear brothers and sisters. Tazkiyah is a very simple process. Tazkiyah is to understand that this soul has to be maintained and also checked. There should be a supervision over this nafs. If you just let the nafs do whatever it does, most probably you will not be able to do tazkiyah. Purification is when you know what you're made of, what did you do, and how to get it better, how to make it better. So this is the core of this surah. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Again, qad is again for emphasis. Consider it done. If somebody have tazkiyah, if they self-building, they work on their character, they work on their personality. This is human psychology of Quran, by the way. Allah is saying, if you want your soul, if you want your personality to be balanced, the key to that is self-purification, self-building. You have to know your flaws, you have to accept the blame, have the active conscience to be able to acquire tranquility. And then the other side as well. وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. And indeed, khaba is failure. When you want something, when you're looking for something, but you fail. Right? Was this disappointment. So وَقَدْ خَابَ, failure is for the one who man dassaha. Dassaha, the word dassa in Arabic, is when you throw something into dirt. And another way, when you undermine it, when you throw it out. It's something very precious and valuable. You ignore that it is valuable. You just throw it out. You don't care. Allah said, if you want to know who's the one failed, man dassaha, the one who throw their soul away. In other words, they throw their soul to the dust. They didn't appreciate the soul. If it's something valuable, you take care of it. If something is you don't care about, you leave it out, you don't even take care of it. So if you want failure is to don't care about self-building, don't care about the nafs, let it be whatever it is. وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Success, failure. You see the balance of Quran? Talk about both aspects. If you want success, self-building. If you want failure, dassaha. Don't do tazkiyah. Let it go. And now from this ayah forward, the topic goes to the subject of a storytelling. And I mentioned that, I think, at the first night here, that when we talk about stories of Quran, there's a reason, because we like to see examples. As people, when there's a topic that is dry, it's a lot of, bullet points and numbers and commands and prohibition and all that, we don't really take it that well. But if you tell it in the form of a story, we appreciate that. So Allah, after telling us all this, comes and gives us a story. The story of the one nation, Thamud. The nation of Thamud are the people of Prophet Salih. Prophet Salih. So his people, Thamud. So from this ayah forward, it's the story of Thamud. The entire surah is about that. To get an example that how to bring this idea of self-building, self-purification, and corruption on a real life example. Allah said, do you want to see an example of how people did not protect their soul, how they didn't maintain their soul? Look at the Thamud. كَذَّبَتْ ثَمُودُ بِطَغْوَاهَا. So if, as an example, كَذَّبَتْ means lying. They lied. كَذَّبَتْ ثَمُود. Thamud, they lied. They lied to who? To who? Anybody? To their prophets. When you say people denied, people lied, we're talking about their opposition with the prophets that they had. So كذبت ثمود بطغواها. They lied to their prophet, they denied their prophet because of tagwa. This is in Arabic, that's the reason, and it said pronunciation is important. When you say taqwa, tagwa, two different words. And exactly opposite. Taqwa, with the ta, with the normal ta, is piety, is God consciousness. Tagwa, with the ta and with the ghain, means transgression, rebellion. Piety, rebellion. Piety, transgression. Exactly opposite. So if you learn the pronunciation, it's because of that. So because they rebelled against God, because they just, the Tughyan is when the water is start to overflow. We say this is Tughyan. And human being, when they pass the limits, when they break rules that God made for them, when they break the moral compass that they have, that's what Tughyan is. When they put any boundaries under their feet. That's why in our faith is so important to maintain boundaries. Because once you go to the mindset of not caring about boundaries, about lines, red lines, you start breaking one after another. So, okay, you have to honor your parents, because if you don't honor your parents, you put that boundary under your feet, eventually you will go to other, rules of God as well. You don't care about drinking eventually. It's not for everyone, but the idea is that these boundaries has to be maintained for a reason. Because if you break one, why not another? Right? It's like people who commit a lot of crimes, if you tell them, you're condemned for life in prison, right? You get a life sentence. It makes no difference for them to do this crime or two more crimes. It's life sentence, right? And for some people, mentality, even within their personal decision, goes to that field. So the story of Thamud, why Thamud? And I finish with that, inshallah. The story of Thamud is because people of the time of the Prophet, they knew about the story of Thamud. Prophet Saleh was one of the closest prophets, timeline-wise, to the people of Mecca and people of Arabian Peninsula. And even pagans, idol worshippers, they used to tell each other the story of Thamud. And they use that as an example that if you go against the word of God, God will punish you. And then they use the story of Thamud as an example. See what God did to the people of Thamud. So Allah used that story specifically because this is a Makki surah. It's revealed in Mecca because there's a relevance between that story and the people of Mecca. It's like if I live in America and use a story, when I talk about justice and I talk about slavery or abolishment of slavery, it makes more sense than talking about, let's say, Mahmud Afghan rebellion against the Persian Empire at the time. The relevance is that the environment you live in, it makes more sense to use example and a historical incident that is more relevant. So Allah did that. Said, كَذَّبَتْ ثَمُودُ بِطَغْوَاهَا. The reason and people know about Thamud. Said the reason they denied their prophet was because they rebelled. They did not maintain the balance of taqwa. Their desires took over. إِذْ انْبَعَثَ أَشْقَاهَا. إِذ in Arabic means when. Let's talk about time. While. إِذْ انْبَعَثَ أَشْقَاهَا. Let's talk about ashqaha because in English translation usually we use the verb at the end. So inba'atha is a verb. So let's go to inba'atha later. Ashqaha is the wretched person. Wicked person. Shaqi is a wretched man. Ashqa is the absolute level of wretchedness and wickedness. Said from those people who are wicked, evil, wrong, imba'atha, they came forward. This imba'ath means they are the one that they involve themselves, they initiate something. Said the wicked man, إِذٍ بَعَثَ أَشْقَاهَا, when the wicked person came forward. To do what? إِذٍ بَعَثَ أَشْقَاهَا فَقَالَ لَهُمْ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ نَاقَةَ اللَّهِ وَسُقْيَاهَا. And then Allah said, when these wretched people came, the Prophet of God, فَقَالَ لَهُمْ, and said to them, to the people, to Thamud, Rasulullah, the messenger of God. It doesn't say Salih, it says messenger of God. Doesn't mention his name. One possibility that I've heard someone said, I did not read it somewhere, but I heard it from someone. They said because this story was for the people of Mecca, they believed in the people of the past, but they don't consider them prophets. So there were people, they lived, they were punished. So Allah mentioned, no, he was a messenger of God. To bring back the whole thing that he was a messenger, also Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a messenger. Because people like Abu Sufyan, they hated this word, Rasulullah. They don't want it. That's the reason when the Sulh Hudaybiyah, the Treaty of Hudaybiyah was written, and the agreement was between the Muslims and the people of Mecca, they said, we will sign this with one condition. If you remove the word Rasulullah. Because the Imam Ali alayhi salam was the one, in some narration said, he was the one who wrote it down. So no, this is a contract between Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Rasulullah, and people of Mecca, Abu Sufyan and the people. And they said, oh, just remove the Rasulullah. And Imam said, I will not do it. Imam alayhi salam said, I won't. And then we have that the Prophet asked Imam alayhi salam to show where it is, and he himself crossed it. This is the authority of a Prophet of God. That even Imam does not want to go to that position. So ultimately, فَقَالَ لَهُمْ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ, the messenger of God, Salih, told to his people, نَاقَةَ اللَّهِ وَسُقْيَاهَا. This is the camel of God. The camel of God means the miracle of the, as a camel, which is a miracle of God. But we say نَاقَةَ اللَّهِ. And I said people who have problem with the words like Tharallah, Asadullah, they don't get it. Or they don't get Quran. So why you call Ali alayhi salam Asadullah, lion of God? God has no lion. And I've seen people make fun of it. Said if you read Quran, Quran has camels. I said Naqatullah, camel of God, because that camel was a sign of God. Why Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, his bravery was a sign. When the name of Ali was said in the battlefield, people will be fearful that Ali ibn Abi Talib is coming. Like the lion, he will impose fear on the hearts of the enemies. What's the issue of using the titles Asadullah? What is wrong about it? So we have that people actually ask Prophet Salih for that miracle. So we don't believe that you are a prophet of God. And he said, okay, but if you want, I can bring you miracles. I said, okay, we want miracle, but the one that we're asking you. And what they asked and demanded was, ask your God, if you're truly the messenger of God, to bring a camel out of this mountain. And Allah did. This is one of the creation of God that was created by Allah without any parents. Right? Without the proper channel of reproduction. So they asked for the camel, and the camel was given, the miracle of God. So when that miracle of God was given to people, Prophet said, Naqatullah, this is the camel of God, this is the miracle of God, respect it. وَالسُّقْيَاهَا. Suqiyaha come about the drinking water time for the camel. Because the idea was that there is the water source, and Prophet Salih said, one day let the camel drink from this water, and one day you drink from this water. Don't disturb the camel. Don't bother the camel. This is the miracle of God. And the idea is, of course, is a command of a prophet of God. Don't drink from this. Naqatallahi wa suqiyaha. So this is what Prophet said. What they did, فَكَذَّبُوهُ. They denied it. Prophet of God said, don't do it. They of course did it. You know? The nature of corruption is this. It's not that every human being is like this. Even so, it's like children. Right? So children, you tell them, don't do this, they want to do it. Why is that, do you think? Why? It's not that because we're evil, because we were born evil or any of that. It's because when we were children, our nafs and our soul is not well built. Our desires are in charge. That's the reason there is no salat, there is no prayer, there is no fasting, there is no zakat, any of that for children, for young children. Why? Because they're not in the age of having that ability to differentiate good and bad. That's why in Islam we have baligh, we have mature, and then we have mumayyiz. Mumayyiz is a child who did not reach the age of bulugh, but that child knows the difference between wrong and right. We have, as a precaution, that child also has to start praying because it's mumayyiz. They know the right and wrong. But some people, as I said, they stay with this unbalanced soul. فَكَذَّبُوهُ فَعَقَرُوهَا. They denied the Prophet of God. They denied his warning about the camel, of respecting the camel, respecting the timeshare of the water. فَعَقَرُوهَا. Aqaru in Arabic is, it could be that they caused some injury to the camel until it died, and another one is that when you cut the lower limbs of the camel, that it cannot walk anymore and it dies because of it. فَعَقَرُوهَا. They killed the camel. So this is an example that people who rebelled against God, they did not maintain the balance. This is what happened to them. Inshallah, I'll leave the rest of it for tomorrow night. We talked about the three type of nafs in Quran: nafs ammara, nafs lawama, nafs mutmainna. We talked about the importance of understanding tazkiyah and dasaha, zakah, dasaha, the path of purification and the path of ignoring the purification. But one thing is important to keep in mind is that the tafsir of the surah, it make more sense if I try to find connection between that and my life. That how can I do self-purification? Am I even doing any small amount of self-purification? Then it is much more memorable, much more effective. Because it's not just a couple of bunch of information that has nothing to do with me. It has an actual meaningful relation to what I do and what I deal with in every day. May Allah inshallah give us that tawfiq. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.